how do I know the world exists? Will I ever know that the world exists at all? No. Which means the existence of the external world woefully depends upon the inputs from the senses. The world is so flimsy, so fragile. If I do not perceive this world through the senses, I will not know whether the world exists or doesn't exist. So I get input from the external senses, through the senses, from the external world. And this is called the input device. In the computer, input and output devices. And this is being processed in CPU, Central Processing Unit, which is called the mind. So mind takes all these inputs and then processes them and then comes with a piece of knowledge. Which means experience gives you knowledge, and knowledge gives you the power to be able to control nature. Swami Vivekananda said in his Raja Yoga introduction, he said, our goal is not enjoyment. Our goal is knowledge through experience. When knowledge accumulates, you get inputs about the outside world, the nature of the outside world, and you need not all the time accumulate knowledge yourself. I put my hand in fire, it burns. I see you putting the hand. Oh, what happened to you? Oh, I put my hand in the fire, it burns. I don't have to put my hand again to the fire to check whether the fire will burn. I learn from your experience. This is how knowledge has grown. This is called, in simple language, you know the word, education. What is education? Education is getting the benefit of the knowledge from hundreds of people. So many people have experienced this. Through that they have gained knowledge. From knowledge, they have documented their experiences, and I gain my wisdom by studying these documents. The education grows. Now the external world is impinging upon me. I am a being who am reacting to this. Of course, am I not a living being? Anybody will question that? Of course I live. Why? I'm standing here, talking, eating. Now, I'm not only a living being, I'm a conscious being. I make a small distinction here between life and consciousness. This is typically the Western thought, the Eastern thought. In India, we have made a clear distinction between life and consciousness. In the West, life and consciousness are mixed up. For life, we have a word called prana, and consciousness, we have a different word which is called chaitanya. What is the difference? A dog or a cat, an animal, it is living, of course living. If you poke it, it will bite you. You can test whether it is living by poking it and getting bitten. So it's a living being, but is it a conscious being? What does consciousness mean? I am talking to you, you are listening to me. This is a sign of life. But when I say I am aware that I am talking to you, when you say I am aware that I am listening, then you become conscious. I am talking is a sign of life. I am aware that I am talking is a sign of consciousness, which means consciousness is self-aware, whereas life may not be self-aware. In animals, consciousness or self-awareness is developed, but not very profoundly developed. In a human being, self-awareness is developed, and the whole exercise in religion and philosophy and meditation and exercises of jnana and bhakti is how this self-awareness, which is already there potentially in us, can be peaked to the highest. When the self-awareness blossoms more and more and reaches its peak, and there's a blast of the luminosity of self-awareness, you become a sage. Very simple. Not so simple, but it appears to be very simple. So the consciousness which is there in a human being, which is developing in the form of self-awareness, asks a fundamental question. I, as a human being, as a conscious being, as a living being, I am experiencing the external world which is constantly impinging upon me, giving me inputs, giving me knowledge. Through knowledge, I get wisdom and then I grow. Now, this nature which I see outside has a tremendous pattern. There are certain impeccable laws by which this nature is governed. These laws can't be questioned so easily. These laws don't change so easily. You can reinterpret these laws as Newton's laws were governing the universe once. Then Einstein came and said, you interpret these experiences differently, not that he was changing the fundamental structure of the universe. So he asked the question, the fundamental laws which govern this universe. And a person who has faith in the laws of nature is called a scientist. Who is a scientist? A scientist is a person who swears by the laws of nature. You can predict this moment sitting here when the next total solar eclipse will occur after 100 years. You have computers will exactly tell you, and this law will be impeccable. Earth will be moving exactly in the same orbit. By mistake, if it swerves away from the orbit, there will be a catastrophe. Such a complicated motion. When we were children, we used to ask, Sir, is there no danger of the moon coming colliding with the Earth? Look at the complicated motion. Earth is rotating like this around itself in a tinted axis and going around the sun. The moon is also rotating around itself, going around the Earth. This fellow is moving, that fellow is also moving. But no catastrophe. You know that nature's laws are impeccable, exactly it will be followed. Now, is there an intelligence behind these nature's laws at all? Or is it that the nature has simply thrown up these laws just like that? There are several schools. Buddha, for example, would say, why do you invoke some intelligence? The laws exist. Then the human being will not be contented with the answer. How the laws just came like that? Where did they come from? Who was the person, if there is any person at all, who has put the sun and the moon and the stars exactly in their orbits and commanded them, you go this way and you cannot move even a micromillimeter from your path? Who said that? Did anybody say that? Then this question arises, is there an intelligence behind this universe? I have a small intelligence. This person who has put the sun and the moon and the stars and the nebulae and the Big Bang and hundreds of billions of galaxies, this person should have enormous intelligence. Obviously, if there is such a person. You call him cosmic intelligence. Some word you have to use. I have little intelligence, he has huge intelligence. I have an individual intelligence, he has a cosmic intelligence. So a person who believes, has faith in that cosmic intelligence, who has put the laws of nature in place, that person is called a religious person. Very simple. A scientist is a person who has impeccable faith in the laws of nature. A religious person is one who has great faith in the intelligence which has made these laws possible. I am quoting Einstein actually. Albert Einstein said very famously, my religion consists of a humble adoration of an illimitable intelligence which our dull faculties can comprehend only in the most primitive form. I want to know what is the mind of God. Hawkins also said that. That famous book, History of Time. What is the mind of God? What is the language of God? The DNA structure was discovered very recently by the turn of the last century. Two groups in Europe and England and USA were working on that. They said, we are trying to find out what is the language of God, which is the DNA. So these questions can't be wished away. You may say, please don't bring these questions. We are happy with what we are. You can't be happy anymore. Tremendous crisis comes to you. There's a tsunami, there's an earthquake. Innocent children died in India some years ago when they were having a march past on a Republic Day. Suddenly the earth shook and these children were simply swallowed by the earth. You ask the question, why did this ever happen? Did God exist? Does God see all this and is happy about it? Why do these things happen? Crisis comes to you. individually, collectively. Your family is broke, you deeply have sorrow. So, oh God, why should this happen to me? Why me? Why anybody? This happens when this crisis comes to you, then awaken, ask certain fundamental questions. Then you ask whether there should be somebody, a superior, great cosmic intelligence, who is running the affairs of the universe and also running the affairs of your own body and mind. It is not easy to run the affairs of your own body. Look at your own body. I always tell my students, don't worry about religion or God or philosophy, just look at your body. What an amazing machine that God, if God is there, God has produced and nature has produced. You have a remarkable vehicle called the human body. And we have known only a small percentage of the functioning of the human body. We don't know anything about the brain, how the brain functions. You have a breakfast in the morning, heavy breakfast, and you don't apply for a leave for that day to digest that food. Sir, I want a day's leave to be able to digest that breakfast. You don't say that. The food is digested in spite of yourself. And you don't care about it and you're happy about it. We don't even think how the infinite God, if He exists, digests your food, takes only what is important, the essence of it, throws away what is not non-essence. He becomes the great divinity, becomes your scavenger in the morning every day, cleans your bowels, cleans your stomach so that you can fill it again with junk food. He doesn't ask you, oh my child, I cleaned you yesterday, why do you again fill it with this kind of a food? He says, you are my child, you keep on making this mistake, don't worry, infinite patience, I'll clean you. This divinity, think of this, just think of this. Even when you're sitting in the restroom, God's presence can be felt. He is washing your bowels every day and cleaning them, getting ready for the next meal. Why don't you say, oh God, thanks? Can't you say that? This is religion, this is meditation, this is yoga. At every moment you feel the presence of the infinite divine who is animating you and moving you at every point. The DNA, it's a great mystery. 1953, and you know, Watson and Crick discovered the double helical structure of the DNA. It's a remarkable breakthrough. You have a small book called The Human Body, published by the Reader's Digest. Please do read this if you haven't. It's a layman's language. It says every DNA has 100,000 coded messages. I'm quoting that from that book. If a person decodes all these messages and a typist sits down and types all of them, it will occupy 1,000 volume encyclopedia. This entire hall will not be sufficient to declare the glory half a dozen DNA cells. And you are sitting in this multiple cell system with the trillions and billions of this DNA and saying, I am weak, I am small, this man is the enemy. Are we not ashamed? Even a book on biology will tell you this. You don't have to go to religion and philosophy for this. So you realize that there should be a cosmic intelligence which is informing, empowering, moving this entire universe outside as well as the microcosm within. So you have I, a living, conscious being. The Sanskrit word is jiva. Can you write that? It's called jiva, J-I-V-A, that's the English spelling. Jiva is a conscious living being, which is I. And the world which you see is called the Jagat. And now, the Jiva and Jagat, there is one more component which is what we call the cosmic intelligence. Illimitable intelligence, as Einstein said. We call this as Ishvara. That's the Sanskrit word. Ishvara, you can say, is the supreme God. You can use the word God. But some people are allergic to the word God, although they will silently worship Him when they are in crisis. Publicly they will say, oh, I don't believe in God. Privately worship Him, because when you're in trouble, this is the human being's hypocrisy. So there are three fundamental things. We begin with this. Remember these three components: Jiva, Jagat and Ishvara. all the gamut of religion you can sit here. Christianity will have a conception of Jiva, Jagat and Ishvara, Hinduism, Judaism. The entire scope of religion is how the conception of Jiva, Jagat and Ishvara develops in each of these religions. Now, if I am the Jiva, a living, so let me now, if you are familiar with this word, I will not use the English word, I'll go for because Jiva is a very specific word. A living, conscious being, which is me. So the Jiva, which is me, constantly interacting with the world outside, is deeply concerned about a superior great intelligence called Ishvara. So I want to find out what is the nature of Ishvara. What is the nature of the intelligence, which I believe, I feel in my heart of hearts, does exist. Is he outside of me? Is he inside of me? Is he pervading the universe? He is the creator God? If he is the creator, what is the relationship between the created and the creator? All kinds of questions arise. So the search into the nature of the Jagat by Jiva is called science. And the quest about the nature of Ishvara by Jiva is called religion or spirituality. Very simple. Jiva is the center, relating to the Jagat on the one hand through science, and relating to Ishvara on the other hand through religion. A human being is related through his mind. Is there anything else through which he can be related? Obviously related through the mind, through thoughts, through feelings, through emotions. You can very simply see that the mind has three fundamental faculties. Psychologists have discovered this. It's a well-known. One is the mind can think. You have thoughts in the mind constantly arising. You can analyze, you can think, you can synthesize. That faculty by which you think and analyze and synthesize is a faculty which is most predominantly used in the field of science. Now we have another faculty which is feeling. If analysis is everything, life will be meaningless. You want to keep on analyzing everything. I am a scientist, I'll keep analyzing. But there is a place for non-analytic emotional response to experience. I'll give you a simple example. I borrow it from a famous book by Arthur Eddington, which is called The Nature of the Physical Universe, an old classic book. We read it as schoolboys, and I was so deeply impressed by this book. He says there is a thing called a mystical experience. There's a thing which is called a religious experience, which can't be analytically posited or analytically understood. Even in daily experience, there are so many things which you can't analytically find out. He says, take the example of humor. Everybody knows what is humor. We laugh when we listen to a joke. I am a scientist. I will not laugh when you tell me a joke. Because I should find out what is the nature of a joke. Define a joke. Because scientists are very careful about definitions. Can you define it? Somebody said, can you define what is definition? So you go on and on. You define a joke. Those of you who have studied chemistry and biology will know there's a chemical salt is given to you. We used to do it in our school classes. You analyze this. This is potassium nitrate. So you analyze this salt, a chemical salt, so many tests, confirmatory test. Finally you say it is really and truly potassium nitrate. You get high marks. The easiest way some people say, go to the helper there who is giving you the samples. What is the salt you have given me? Can you tell me? I'll give you a small amount and you get the high marks also. So you're given a joke. I ask the question, define joke. I'll give you a definition. What is the definition? This joke should have these components, it is laughable. When you listen to this, you feel like laughing, you are happy. 1, 2, 3, 4. You tell me a joke. Wait, I will not laugh. I'm a scientist. I will analyze this joke to find out if it's really a joke. Analyze 1, 2, 3, 4. At the end of it, I come to the conclusion, yes, it is really and truly a joke. Now laugh. You can't laugh anymore because you've killed the joke by analysis. Look at this example. Eddington beautifully says there, the analysis of a joke retains all the characteristics of a joke except its laughableness. It just doesn't do to expose the inner workings of a joke. The reaction to a joke comes spontaneously, naturally, non-analytically. Exactly the feeling for God. Oh, God is so compassionate. Wait, what is God? What is compassion? Define. In the whole world, if we keep on analyzing and defining, world would be so silly. Oh, sir, I'm so happy. I've got a child. You should be extremely unhappy for it. If you're absolutely a materialist, I can prove that nobody can be completely a materialist. Do you know why? When a child is born, the parent should be intensely unhappy. If he is a pure materialist. Why? This is going to be a liability for 25 years. And millions of dollars will be spent on the child's education and health. And if you swear only by your money, you should be so unhappy. But you are not. Even the most materialistic person is happy with the child because there is something beyond materialism. There is a component in human consciousness which transcends mere material objects. You feel a great emotion towards God. And a person who says that the emotion towards God is superstition and meaningless, irrational, will be classified as a person who lacks a sense of humor. Just like you do not like a person who can't laugh at a joke, you don't like a person who can't feel the emotion of the higher consciousness called the superior intelligence. It's a kind of mental deficiency. There are some people who claim, I have seen God. Christ said, he intuited God. Ramakrishna said, I have seen God, I have seen him as I am seeing you, much more intensely, and I can show him to you. That is the challenge of religion. If I have seen God, you also should be able to see him. If I say I have seen him, you can't see him, that is not science. Replicability and independence of time and space. If God is seen here in San Diego, you should be able to see him in Hollywood, you will be able to see him in Europe, you will be able to see him in India. If somebody has seen it 1,000 years ago, I should be able to see him now. This experience is a transcendental experience which is beyond time and beyond space. This is what science is. You do not identify scientific discoveries with any clan or religion. You don't say, I don't like the theory of relativity by Einstein because he is a Jew. You don't say, I don't like Raman effect because he is from India. You don't say, the Salam's theory of the unified theory of forces, I don't like it because he is from Pakistan. Science transcends religion, country, place, time. Exactly the same way, religion is also universal. Now, if I take God to be an existence which has to be intuited and understood, to which I can relate. Why is it necessary? I'll give you a simple argument for this, logically. By definition, God is something who doesn't change. Suppose you say, define God. God is the changeless entity who transcends time and space, because change is in time, change is in space. Can you think of any other changes? From Hollywood, I came to San Diego, I have changed places. I'm sitting in San Diego today, and after 10 years, I'll become old. I have changed in time. Change always means change in time and in space. Spatial change and temporal change. By definition, God is somebody who doesn't change in time, doesn't change in space. Now, space and time will also involve causation. What is causation? Something is the cause and something else is the effect. And causation always involves timing, sequence of timing. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow. What's the problem with you? I have a terrible cold. What happened? I got drenched in the rain yesterday. Oh, is it so? Be more careful. That's a reasonable statement. Why are you having this cold? I'm going to get drenched in the rain tomorrow. I have a cold today. Does it mean anything? No. So causation is yesterday becoming the cause and today is the effect. Today being the cause and tomorrow is the effect. So space and time is related to causality. So we call it in India, Desha Kala Nimitta. So God by definition is a person. Can you write that up? Yeah. God by definition is a person who transcends Desha Kala Nimitta. Time, space and causation. Therefore he is changeless. Now you may ask the question, is it necessary to have a changeless God? Everything is changing, let it change. Why do you posit the God who is unchanging? I have not seen an unchanging God, but you posit one. Is it really necessary? As Swami Prabhavanandaji said beautifully, Nietzsche, the existentialist, said God is dead. Prabhavanandaji said, when was he ever born? to be dead. So is it necessary that you need to posit a God at all? A changeless entity in the midst of change? In science we have a method of proof which is called reductio ad absurdum, reducing it to an absurdity. What you do is, suppose you prove this theorem. What you do is assume the opposite of this is true, that the theorem is untrue. Then follow the consequences. If the conclusion that you get is absurd, go back and say that the theorem is true because the opposite of this assumption leads you to absurdity. It's called reducing to an absurdity, reductio ad absurdum. This is a well-known method in science and mathematics. So let us follow that method. Suppose you assume that God doesn't exist. Nothing changeless exists. It's only change everywhere. What will be the consequence? Life will become meaningless. If everything is changing, you can't give any meaning to life. You will go back to your drive back to your home in the evening, and you don't see your house there. Hey, my house was here. Oh yeah, it just now moved to Hollywood. How would you react to that? Life will be meaningless. Everything is constantly changing. There has to be some changeless entity to give meaning to change. And unless there is a changeless entity, your life will be reduced to absurdity. And if you don't find meaning to life, what happens to you? Who is a person who doesn't find any meaning to life? He becomes mad. Who is a mad person? Mad person is a person who doesn't find meaning to life at all. Suppose you say, I don't mind being mad, so your time has not come. You be mad, I don't want to be mad. So you have to believe in something which is changeless in order to give meaning to change and meaning to life itself. So this entity which is called the changeless entity called God, you have per se to accept it, to be able to be sane, if not philosophical. When crisis comes to you, when you can't take it anymore, you have to fall back upon something which is changeless. Everything is changing. You depend on somebody who is very close to you. That person, he or she, deserts you, leaves you. You are broke. You depend on your money, your bank balance. Suddenly there's a financial recession. You depend on a credit card in the pocket. Suddenly it doesn't go. You depend on the ATM, draw money. Somebody has withdrawn your bank account has been hacked. And you are broke. In such moments, you have to fall back upon something which is changeless. Oh God, what is happening to me? It may be an imaginary consolation according to very rational people, but at least consoles me and then prevents me from getting mad. You be rational and go mad. Let me be irrational and be sane. So you have to think of a God, superior being, who is the cosmic intelligence, who is informing me and driving me and then animating me and making life possible and meaningful.